My name is Bane Brooks. I'm the mayor of the city of Allen, and I want to welcome you to Let's Dish. Today's guest is our executive director of the Economic Development Corporation for the city of Allen, Dan Bowman. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
You and I have known each other since 2012.
It's been a while. Yeah.
You know, you started out as an assistant, and we've gotten to know each other over the years. Just tell us a little bit about you on the personal side, Just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, I had the good fortune of growing up in Allen, Texas, and moving here when Allen was much smaller than it is now. And I've always been involved in arts and music growing up. So, in fact, I was looking up over the Thanksgiving holiday recently the video of the Allen Eagle Escadrille Band marching in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in 1997. And that was, I had the pleasure of being part of that as well. So, really always loved art and entertainment. I think there's a lot of cool stuff we can do in our downtown with that as well. So growing up and graduating from Allen High School, going off to Trinity University, San Antonio, getting my MBA at UT Dallas, and then being able to come back and work in the community I grew up in and help bring businesses in and expand really cool developments like Waters Creek. I never would have guessed I'd have the opportunity to do that in my own hometown.
Wow. Very, 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 very good. How about family?
My parents, my sister, my brother, they're all around here. My son, Levi, grew up here. So just really exciting to have be a part of this community and have family so close. Because, when I have the one grandkid in the family, my son is close by. All the grandparents want to be around. So
that's cool. Let me ask you this. We always talk about the EDC. That's the acronym for the Economic Development Corporation. What is the EDC?
Yeah, so the Economic Development Corporation was created by a vote of the citizens in 1992. And what it does is we collect a half-cent sales tax, and we use those funds to create these developments, these commercial projects, and bring in companies that enhance the tax base so we can lower the burden of taxes on the residential citizens. So again, when you have really cool developments like Waters Creek and the office buildings around that, the convention center, the farm that just opened, you see all these businesses like Experian and Jack Henry and companies that employ people here, they bring all this taxable value. And so when you assess a tax on those businesses and they're paying their fair share, that helps us to lower the tax burden on citizens. And it also creates jobs for people that live in our community. So we're always looking to recruit companies that pay good wages and pay benefits so that people who live right here can work close to home and don't have to commute to places like Plano or Dallas or Richardson.
How many projects you think you've been a part of coming to Allen?
Just in our we have an impact study we do every year, and the upcoming study has nearly 200 projects since we've been in existence, and these are big projects. So I'm sure a substantial number of those have been in the last 20 years since I've been here, and I've had the good fortune of being the director for the last 10 years. I think you guys hired me in 2014 and promoted me to the director, and we've just seen a ton of growth and change during that time. Most notably, all that growth around Waters Creek, which is such a first-class development. To have a place like that with the open green and all the office businesses that have moved in there, One Bethany West, One Bethany East, NetScout, Credit Union of Texas, the Convention Center, which is now bringing in a ton of business, booked almost year-round. That's stuff that we didn't have 20 years ago, didn't even have contemplated. And to see how the city councils held that vision in place and created this really exciting place to do business is compelling.
Do you think the growth of Allen has been strategic?
Well, certainly, yeah. Whereas maybe we didn't know exactly that it was going to be NetScout that came in or the convention center in this spot, the council's always said we need to maintain this acreage here at Bethany and 75 for a really first-class mixed-use development. On 121, there's been 900 acres of projects out there, and the council said decades ago, hey, we're not going to just allow all this residential growth to go way up to the highway. You see houses as far as the eye can see. We've got great residential developments, but we're going to maintain this for really compelling commercial mixed-use projects. And then that's what's allowed projects like the farm to come out of the ground. And you've got Chicken and Pickle coming pretty soon out there. And you've got FarmWorks 1 that just opened, first Class A office building, already has FiberGrate corporate headquarters located there. So we're seeing a lot of interest from businesses because the council said, hey, let's not say yes to every development that shows up. Let's be picky. And let's maintain this land so we can bring in higher value projects that create more value for the community, more jobs, and create this engine that helps us to be a community that can stand the test of time.
So, you brought in a lot of projects, a lot of different variety of projects. Can you speak a little bit about the projects that have low impact on the city, that generate a lot of taxable income?
Well, some projects that you've seen more, even recently investing in Allen, data centers, right? So you've got CyrusOne building several data center facilities kind of over north of the outlet mall, close to the highway, so away from most things. But these bring in huge amounts of taxable value. You're talking if they invest $300 million, which is what's estimated for these new expansion projects, that's computer data equipment and cabling and buildings, and all of that's taxable. In fact, there's sales tax on the equipment that comes in, and that boost in sales tax allows the city to go hire more firefighters, more police officers, and to do the business of the city. So our goal in economic development is to provide more taxes for that kind of stuff that the city does to make Allen continue to make Allen a great place to live, work, and play. And that's what our function should be.
You spoke earlier, I'm gonna shift gears just a little bit. You spoke earlier about being from Allen and going to schools. Tell a little bit about you growing up here. Tell us a little bit of how that transpired.
Well, sure. Yeah. When I was young, we lived, on the east side, kind of off Heritage Parkway back there, and across the street was all cow fields, and the Joe Farmer just kind of popped up while I was growing up. There were some things to do, but the west side of Allen didn't exist yet, and so. The thought was, hey, that this is obviously a great place, great schools, great parks, but there wasn't a lot to do. There weren't a lot of, we had the Italian Villa, a couple of restaurants we could go to, but for the most part, you had to leave and go south to Plano or Collin Creek Mall to do something. And since that time, when I first came on in 2004, that was still largely the complaint was where are the restaurants, where are the things to do? And since that time, Village at Allen, everything that's happened at Waters Creek, tons of restaurants have come in. And now the thing that the people are asking for are give us really unique things to do. So help us with our downtown. Let's make that really interesting and unique, one of a kind types of entertainment. And so growing up, it's so many of my friends that I knew growing up, they moved other places because there weren't as many jobs nearby. And now you see these younger generations. The goal here is that they're going to be able to stay nearby if they want to, because we've created these employment centers and there's jobs right down the street from where they went to high school.
So over 200 projects. You've got to have one of your favorites that you really, really are proud of. You had to go out and work to get it, and it's here today. Talk a little bit about one of your favorite projects.
That's a hard one because there's a lot of really good projects right out there. One of my favorites is definitely NetScout. When we started looking at Class A office, before we built any of that stuff north of Bethany near Waters Creek, we were told, hey, Allen doesn't quite have any Class A market. We're not sure you're going to get Class A office buildings. And then based on the work of the EDC, we were able to prove up the market and build these nice buildings you see there today. And while those were being built, NetScout came and said, hey, we have 550 highly paid cybersecurity engineers, and we need to put them somewhere. And we just saw this construction and thought, Allen's going to be a fantastic location. They can walk right over to Waters Creek. And it was a complex transaction and deal, but getting that done will continue to pay dividends to the city. We've talked with their leadership recently, and NetScout said this is one of their best facilities. They continue to invest there. They want to continue to put, again, these highly paid, highly skilled employees, engineers there, and I think that will create jobs for our residents. So I'm proud of that one. I think the Kone Elevators campus near City Hall with the elevator test tower and the hundreds of employees at Kone Elevators and Escalators is putting there, a lot of engineering talent there as well. That'll be one that they continue to invest in. And that was one that took a couple of years of work to get them here too. So companies like Kone and like NetScout, and even like CyrusOne, the data center company, or Cisco Systems with their data center, all of those are really impactful projects I'm proud of.
Can you talk a little bit about Credit Union of Texas? Because I know that you worked on that extremely hard, and you brought them to town, and they have just exceeded our expectations as far as community involvement. Talk a little bit about that project and how it all came about.
Well, the Credit Union of Texas exemplifies the kind of company you want in your backyard, right? They're reinvesting. They volunteer. They even got their name on our event center at Stacy. So they are just really invested in the community. The project came together because we didn't have any office buildings there to begin with. We were planning this convention center out, but it hadn't hit yet. It was still kind of in the works. And then we were planning this office building, and it wasn't ready to go. And we were waiting for one to go. And as soon as the office building said, yes, we're going to build this building, the convention center, the financing, the bank said, okay, we'll sign on the dotted line and get that built. And when both were coming up at the same time, Credit Union said, oh, here's a building. We need to be in quickly. We got, I forget the amount of time, 6 months, 8 months. And fortunately, because that building now exists, we can come to Allen. Otherwise, Allen wouldn't have been a choice because there would have been no facility for them. And they were in a location south of us that wasn't optimal for them. And so having that in place, we met with their CEO, Eric Pointer. We met with their board, and they came and talked to us, and we were just excited to be able to accommodate them. And since that time, not only have they taken over and purchased that building that they're located in at Bethany, they also purchased a building right near Allen City Hall for an additional division of their company, and continue to reinvest, continue to bring more employees, and we have no doubt they'll keep growing. So a lot of times what we do has to do with real estate. Do we have the buildings that are getting built? And can we help those buildings get built so that we can accommodate the company and then get those great employers? Because the end goal is always employers. It's always jobs. It's always that kind of investment, because the companies that locate here will help keep Allen as a thriving location into the future.
I would ask you what's hot and what's coming, but I know you have a lot of confidentiality in a part of your job. But anything that you could talk about?
Well, the stuff we're most excited about that we're bragging on right now are some of the companies coming in. A good example is onsemi, which is bringing 350 highly paid jobs to Allen, Texas. And they're taking a building near Allen City Hall that was built in the late 90s, called kind of a dot-com boom building. And it was really on being 30 years old, needed a refresh, right? So they came in and they're investing a ton of money in that building, nearly $30 million. They're going to bring, again, the 350 jobs. That's a great example of it. You don't see a lot of 100,000 square foot office leases getting done with that kind of caliber of employment. So that's a great deal. Other deals that are happening that we're excited about, Amphenol Fiber Systems, company that's been in Allen for 20 years. They're doubling in size, going up to 100,000 square feet, bringing in 200 employees, expanding their base, and reinvesting and going into 121 Tech Park, which is up on 121 at Chelsea Boulevard. And they're the anchor tenant for that park, which is 750,000 square feet. So that was a huge one that we were very involved in. OmniLife, which recently had a groundbreaking out on 121. This is an upscale manufacturer of nutraceuticals out of Mexico. They're moving their North American headquarters to Allen, Texas, and building this building that'll cost between $30 and $40 million. Really exciting. They'll have 150 employees. People from across the country will come in and stay in our hotels, and they'll have all of their distributors in. So it's really a great project. So those are three that I'm excited about right now that are big.
So, on a sidebar, word on the street amongst your peers is you can be a good jokester.
Uh-oh.
Is that something that you do?
I mean, I like to have some fun sometimes, sure.
They said you were a little bit of a prankster back in the day.
You know, when I was in Allen High School, we were a bit of a smaller school, and I like to think the things I got into that were kind of silly were, pretty innocent. But I remember one thing we did was we started our own fundraiser. We ordered some. We realized that the French Club was selling this candy, and they were selling it for $5 a pop. So we ordered some boxes under our own teacher name and started selling it. And we realized, hey, we can sell it at $2.50 and so it was all the economics turning. And it's funny, I was talking to some of our school district officials, and they say, you know what, we now encourage our students to do that, but at the time it was frowned upon. Starting your own fundraiser. So we were silly, but to be fair, I think there are probably worse things going on than that. So
yeah, you're right. Well, Dan, what would people be surprised to learn about you?
Well, for me, I'm very kind of left brain, right brain. I like when I'm at work, I like to get things done and serious. And I think in my spare time, I mentioned before, I'm a musician. So I had a folk band that we played in for a number of years, still pops its head up, and we play from time to time, called Fox and the Bird. So you can Google us. But yeah, we put out a few albums, and we were even the best band in the DFW area for the best folk band in 2013, according to the Dallas Observer. So that was kind of a fun time to kind of make music. I love making music with my friends, and I love writing music. So that's kind of what keeps me kind of fueled on the side.
That's pretty neat. I knew you were a musician, but I didn't know that you were in a folk band. I didn't know that. Well, I know I had an opportunity to hear you play the guitar before and sing, and that was kind of fun. So it was really, really a good night. Tell us a little bit about your staff. I get a chance to go over to your office, and you've just got some players, some really smart players on your team, and they seem to get things done at a high level. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I like to say our staff, we're small but mighty. If you compare to, probably McKinney and Frisco, we're a little bit smaller in terms of staff. But I think Allen always does more with less. That's kind of what we do. And our staff, we're just very efficient. We've got, again, a total of 7 of us, including myself. We've got Jan Jungman, who's our business retention expansion manager, who's just fantastic. Her job is to work with all the local businesses, both small and large, to build relationships, make sure they're happy in our community, make sure that we keep them here. Also, we have all these workforce initiatives. So Jan is on the workforce board. She makes sure that our one great initiative she had this year was getting the teachers from Allen ISD into the schools through a teacher externship program so they could learn what all these companies are doing and bring those skills back to the classroom. And vice versa, we have people from these companies come into the classroom to learn a lot of what's happening within the ISD. So how do we help companies hire people? How do we help them hire our students out of our high school or out of our local community college and create that pipeline of talent? So Jan does a lot of that. Eileen Gonzalez is our marketing director. So she's helping to market the whole city as a place to do business. How do we keep up with everybody else in the region and the state saying Allen is where you need to relocate your business? And every state does some amount of marketing, and every city does marketing as well. So we need to make sure we're at the forefront of the attention from these decision makers who are deciding where companies will go. So Eileen does that. And then, we got a variety of Nicole Bywater is our economic development specialist who helps with contracts and compliance. Because when we bring in a company, if we give a grant to a company, typically to invest in something like infrastructure or finish out, something that stays here in the community, we always make sure there's strings attached. There's a great economic impact. We have a contract in place that says you must invest this, you must create these jobs, and we track that. And so Nicole's in charge of making sure we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and tracking where every dollar is spent and what return we get for that. So she does that. We got Claire Benson, who's our part-time analyst, who does a fantastic job just kind of helping us track the numbers. And we got Julie Brown, our office manager, administrator, who helps, really is our quarterback, keeps us all coordinated. And we're excited right now because we have an open vice president position, and we're going to fill that with, we just lost David Ellis, who went off. We're very excited for him to be the director in Van Alstyne, and we're going to fill that position. But we got a good staff, and I'm excited about where we sit with that.
Well, as we close this episode of Let's Dish with all the positive things in Allen, Texas, close us out, Dan, with why do you think a company should come to Allen, Texas?
Allen has so many advantages. We have this small town feel with the ability to really know your neighbors, the ability to go to one huge advantage I always brag on is our parks and recreation. That we do green spaces better than any community around here. That's our big advantage. We've invested in all the trails along the creek beds here, and Allen just does that, I think, better than almost anybody. And so if you want to come to Allen and have all those amenities and all the things we talk about with the good schools, but also have a mixed use environment, you're a business, so you're locating close by to where people live, especially in an environment where people have some remote work. You want your employees to desire to come to the office. And if you can come to the office and look out the window and see a chicken and pickle, or come to Waters Creek and look out and see the big green belt and the new expanded Mi Cocina patio, or all sorts of cool, fun things to do, that's going to keep your employees engaged and showing up to the office. So I think being a community that's high caliber and it's created compelling, walkable, mixed-use environments in the midst of this really upscale suburban community. That's what makes Allen very attractive.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to come out and let's dish with all the positive things in Allen. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Glad to be here.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mayor.
Thank you.